Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Warning. Trent Westfall didn't believe in coincidences. 15 years in military intelligence had taught him that patterns always told a story if you knew how to read them. So when his wife Amara mentioned a 3-day pharmaceutical conference in Boston, the fourth emergency work trip in 2 months, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. "I wouldn't go if it wasn't critical," Amara said, not meeting his eyes as she packed her overnight bag. "The Novex trials are entering final phase, and Dr. Donaldson needs all hands on deck." Trent nodded, his face betraying nothing. "The kids will miss you. I'll bring them something special," she replied, checking her phone again, the 7th time in 20 minutes. After 12 years of marriage, Trent knew Amara's tells. The slight flush creeping up her neck. The way she tucked her auburn hair behind her ear when crafting a lie. The careful distance she maintained as she kissed his cheek goodbye. After dropping Amara at the airport, Trent returned to their sprawling colonial home in the Connecticut suburbs. Rain lashed against the windows as he tucked the twins, Betrayal and Blake, into bed. 7 years old and already too perceptive for their own good. "Daddy, read us a story," Betrayal pleaded, her dark eyes, just like her mother's, wide and innocent. "Not tonight, princess. Daddy has some work to finish," Trent said, smoothing her hair. Later, in his home office, Trent reviewed security footage from his company, Westfall Protection Services. At 42, he'd built a reputation as the man corporations called when they needed problems to disappear quietly. His clients valued his discretion and ruthless efficiency. Few knew about his classified missions before he'd gone private. A crack of thunder shook the house around midnight. Trent was cross-referencing flight manifests when his office door creaked open. The twins stood there in matching dinosaur pajamas, wide-eyed and trembling. "Daddy," Blake whispered, clutching his sister's hand. "We need to hide." Trent immediately went on alert, his body tensing. "What's wrong, buddy?" The twins exchanged a frightened glance before Betrayal spoke. "We saw Mommy's secret papers. Your name had a red X." "What papers?" Trent asked, keeping his voice calm. "In Mommy's desk. There were pictures of you and a list of names. Yours had a red X." Blake's bottom lip quivered, and there was a calendar with today's dates circled. A cold chill ran down Trent's spine. He'd known something was wrong, but involving the children crossed a line he hadn't anticipated. "When did you see this?" he asked. "Yesterday. We were playing hide-and-seek," Betrayal admitted. "Mommy got really mad when she caught us." Trent led the twins to the kitchen for hot chocolate, his mind racing. As he reached for the light switch, the entire house plunged into darkness. "Daddy," Blake whimpered. "It's okay," Trent whispered, reaching for the gun he kept holstered at his ankle. Probably just a storm, but Trent knew better. The security system should have switched to backup power immediately. "Come here," he whispered, pulling the twins close. That's when they heard it. The basement door bursting open, followed by heavy footsteps on the stairs. Chapter 2. Blood Ties. Trent had seconds to react. He scooped up the twins and silently moved to the pantry, where he'd installed a hidden panic room years ago. As the door sealed shut behind them, the twins huddled against him in the dark. "Not a sound," he whispered, activating the surveillance system that gave him eyes on every room in the house. 3 men in tactical gear moved through the house with military precision. These weren't random burglars. They knew the layout and were heading straight for his office. "Who are they?" Blake whispered. "Bad men," Trent answered simply. "But they won't find us." On the monitors, Trent watched as the intruders tore through his office, grabbing his laptop and files. Their leader spoke into a radio. No sign of the target or the children. Proceeding to secondary locations. Trent's blood ran cold. They weren't just after him. They wanted the twins too. Once the intruders departed, Trent accessed the secure server where all his home surveillance footage automatically uploaded. He watched footage from earlier that day, seeing Amara enter his office with another man, a tall figure with salt and pepper hair that Trent recognized immediately. Russell Parnell. Not a pharmaceutical executive as Amara had claimed, but the CEO of Helix Dynamics, a defense contractor that had aggressively pursued Trent's company for acquisition last year. The footage showed Amara opening Trent's safe and photographing documents. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. "We need to go somewhere safe," Trent told the twins, packing essentials into a go bag. "And we can't tell anyone, not even Mommy." "Is Mommy in trouble?" Brielle asked. Trent chose his words carefully. "Mommy made some bad choices. We need to make sure those bad men don't find us while I fix things." They slipped out through a tunnel that connected the panic room to the garage, where Trent kept an unmarked vehicle with untraceable plates. As they drove through the stormy night, Trent called the one person he still trusted. "Cal, it's me. Protocol Blackfish is in effect." Calvin Reese had been Trent's spotter in Afghanistan, saving his life more times than either could count. Now he ran a remote hunting lodge in the Adirondacks that doubled as a safe house. "What happened?" Cal asked, no hesitation in his voice. "Amara's working with Parnell. They try to take me out tonight. The twins are with me." A long pause. "Jesus, Trent. The kids too. They know something, Cal. They saw documents with my name marked for elimination. The guest cabin is stocked. I'll run interference." By dawn, they reached the lodge. As the twins finally fell asleep in the cabin's loft, Trent connected to his secure network and began piecing together the truth. Amara had first met Russell Parnell 8 months ago when Helix approached Westfall Protection about merger. The digital trail revealed hundreds of encrypted communications between them. Hotel reservations. Joint offshore accounts recently opened. But most damning was a document outlining Westfall's classified government contracts, information only Trent and Amara had access to. They weren't just having an affair. They were systematically dismantling his life to take his company. When Cal arrived with supplies, his weathered face was grim. "Your house is gone. Electrical fire, they're saying. Total loss." Trent nodded, unsurprised. "They're tying up loose ends." "What about the twins? They're targets now, too." "They saw something they shouldn't have." "A list." Cal's eyes narrowed. "What kind of list?" "People standing in the way of whatever Amara and Parnell are planning." Trent pulled up a document. 5 of my clients have died in accidents over the last 6 months. All had military contracts that Helix wanted. "And you're next," Cal concluded. "Not just me," Trent said, his voice hardening. "She was willing to sacrifice our children." Cal recognized the change in his friend's expression. He'd seen it before, in war zones when Trent crossed into that cold, calculating mindset that made him legendary in their unit. "What are you going to do?" Cal asked quietly. Trent looked at the sleeping twins. "First, I protect them. Then I make sure everyone who betrayed us pays. Starting with my wife." Chapter 3. The Architect. 3 days later, Trent watched from a distance as Amara stood before news cameras, tears streaming down her face. "My children and husband are missing," she sobbed. "Our home destroyed. Please, if anyone has information." The performance was flawless. Concerned mother and wife, desperate for answers. But Trent saw what others missed. The way her eyes remained dry despite the tears, the calculated pauses for effect. Beside her stood Russell Parnell, playing the role of supportive family friend. His hand rested possessively on Amara's shoulder as he announced that Helix Dynamics was offering a substantial reward for information. In the cabin, the twins watched their mother on TV with confusion. "Why is Mommy lying?" Blake asked. "Sometimes adults do bad things for money or power," Trent explained gently. "Mommy made choices that put us in danger." "Is she coming here?" Brielle asked, fear in her voice. "No, Princess. This is our secret place." That night, after putting the twins to bed, Trent reviewed what he discovered about Project Architect, a classified initiative mentioned repeatedly in communications between Amara and Parnell. According to the fragments he'd gathered, Helix had developed technology that could remotely access secure government systems through quantum interference. But they needed Westfall's client list and security protocols to deploy it. With Trent gone and Amara in control of his company, they'd have everything they needed. Cal returned from town with news. "The feds are involved now. Missing persons, suspected foul play." Amara is pointing fingers at your competitors. She needs me officially dead to take control of the company, Trent said. And she needs the twins as her cover story. The grieving widow raising her children alone. So what's the play? Cal asked. I need to become a ghost, Trent replied. Someone who can move between worlds without being seen. He opened a secure case containing passports, credentials, and cash. His insurance policy from his covert operations days. I need you to get a message to Director Harlow at the DOJ. She needs to know about Project Architect before it's deployed. Cal looked uncertain. You trust her? I trust her ambition. Taking down a defense contractor attempting to breach government systems would make her career. And Amara? Trent's eyes hardened. She doesn't get a quick ending. I want her to lose everything, piece by piece, until she's standing alone with the ruins of her betrayal. The twins. Trent looked toward the loft where his children slept. They deserve better than either of us. Once this is over, my sister will raise them. They'll never be safe as long as they know what they saw, Cal pointed out. I know, Trent said quietly. That's the price of survival. Some memories need to be buried. The next morning, Trent sat the twins down. We're going on a special trip. You'll stay with Aunt Shannon for a while. What about you, Daddy? Brielle asked. Daddy has to fix some problems. Bad people are trying to hurt us, and I need to stop them. Because of the Red X? Blake asked. Trent nodded. I need you both to be brave, and I need you to forget about the list and the Red X. Can you do that for me? The twins nodded solemnly, too young to understand the full weight of what their father was asking. That night, as a private plane carried the twins to Shannon's remote Montana ranch, Trent activated a secure phone. Nash, he said when the line connected. I need your expertise. It's time to collect on Beirut. Siobhan Nash had been the CIA's top psychological warfare specialist before an operation went sideways. She owed Trent her life, and they both knew she'd been waiting for his call. Who's the target? She asked. My wife. I want her to experience everything she planned for me. This won't be clean, Nash warned. I'm not looking for clean, Trent replied. I'm looking for justice. Chapter 4, Ghost Protocol. 6 weeks after his disappearance, Trent watched Amara enter the Westfall corporate headquarters in downtown Hartford. Despite the board's reluctance, she'd leveraged her status as his wife to assume temporary control of operations. Russell Parnell had been surprisingly absent from public view, focusing instead on finalizing Project Architect from the shadows. Trent's appearance had changed dramatically. Gone was the clean-cut executive. His hair was longer, his formerly clean-shaven face now covered with a thick beard, colored contacts changing his blue eyes to brown. The few extra pounds he'd gained completed the transformation. Inside a van parked across the street, Siobhan Nash monitored surveillance equipment. She scheduled meetings with all your major clients today. Parnell's people are embedded as security consultants shadowing each account. They're mapping access points, Trent muttered. How's progress on our end? Your DOJ contact came through. They're building a case, but they need concrete evidence of Project Architect. So far, it's all circumstantial. Trent had spent weeks constructing his counterattack. The first phase involved systematically isolating Amara from her support system, beginning with the Westfall Board of Directors. Parker's up first, Nash noted, referencing Vernon Parker, the board chairman who had known Trent for decades. Trent nodded. He'll be the easiest to convince. Later that evening, as Parker walked to his car in the deserted parking garage, a figure emerged from the shadows. Hello, Vernon. Parker nearly collapsed at the sight of Trent. My God, you're alive. The police, your wife. My wife tried to have me killed, Trent said calmly, along with my children. Parker stared in disbelief. That's impossible. Amara has been devastated. An act, Trent interrupted, handing Parker a flash drive. Everything you need to know is here. Helix Dynamics is using my company as cover for a cyber weapon called Project Architect. Amara gave them access. If this is true, Parker began. When the FBI contacts you tomorrow, you'll know it's true. Until then, keep acting normally. Lives depend on it. One by one, Trent reached out to trusted board members. By the end of the week, Amara arrived at work to find herself locked out of the executive floor. Security escorted her to a meeting where the board presented evidence of her duplicity in corporate espionage. The first phase of Trent's plan was complete. Amara had lost the company. But what she didn't know was that her nightmare was just beginning. Trent watched from his surveillance post as Amara frantically called Parnell, who refused to answer. Her carefully constructed world was starting to crumble. That night, as Amara entered her hotel room, she'd been too ashamed to return to what remained of their home. She found an envelope on her bed containing photos of her with Parnell, dates and locations documented meticulously. A single red X was drawn across her face. Nash observed through hidden cameras as Amara's composure finally broke. She's terrified, she noted, but not remorseful. She doesn't know what remorse is, Trent replied. Yet, the next morning, headline news reported Russell Parnell's sudden resignation from Helix Dynamics amid rumors of financial impropriety. His accounts had been frozen pending investigation. Trent's second target had fallen. You've cut off her resources, Nash observed. What's phase 3? Isolation, Trent replied. We turn everyone against her until she has nowhere to run. And Parnell? Trent's expression darkened. He's being handled separately. In a remote cabin in rural Vermont, Russell Parnell awoke to find himself bound to a chair. His head throbbed from the sedative that had been in his drink the night before. Hello, Russell. Parnell's eyes widened in terror as Trent stepped into the light. This isn't possible, he whispered. You're dead. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Trent said, pulling up a chair. We have a lot to discuss, starting with why you targeted my children. I never, Parnell began. Don't insult me with denials, Trent cut him off. The twins saw the list. My name with a red X. They were witnesses you couldn't afford to leave alive. Parnell's face paled. It was Amara's idea. She said they'd found documents. I wanted to wait, but she insisted we move immediately. My wife, Trent said softly, suggested killing our children. She said it would look like an accident. The fire. Parnell swallowed hard. She's not who you think she is, Westfall. She approached us a year ago, offering your company's classified contracts. This was her operation from the start. Trent sat back, absorbing this revelation. Tell me everything about Project Architect. By morning, Trent had what he needed, complete details of the cyber weapon, the conspirators involved, and most importantly, Amara's true role as the operations mastermind. What are you going to do to me? Parnell asked, exhausted after hours of interrogation. Nothing, Trent replied, injecting him with another sedative. The federal agents arriving in 20 minutes will handle your prosecution. Treason carries severe penalties. As Parnell lost consciousness, Trent placed a call to his DOJ contact. You'll find Parnell and all the evidence you need at these coordinates. Project Architect has been neutralized. And your wife? Director Harlow asked. She's my concern, Trent replied. Just keep my name out of the official record. The world still thinks you're dead. Westfall. Let's keep it that way. Chapter 5. Exposed Lies. Amara Westfall's world had imploded. In just 2 weeks, she'd lost control of her husband's company. Her lover had been arrested on federal charges, and her reputation was in tatters. She sat alone in her hotel room, surrounded by newspaper articles detailing the collapse of Project Architect and Helix Dynamics stock plummet. Her phone rang, an unknown number. Hello, she answered cautiously. They're coming for you next, a distorted voice said. Who is this? Someone who knows what you did to your family. Amara's hand trembled. I don't know what you're talking about. The twins saw your list. Your husband's name marked for death. Your own children, Amara. There's a special place in hell. The line went dead. Panicked, Amara booked a flight to Zurich, where she'd hidden emergency funds. But at the airport, she was detained by customs officials. Her passport had been flagged. After hours of questioning, she was released but missed her flight and her escape route. In his surveillance hub, Trent watched Amara's growing desperation with cold detachment. She's running scared, Nash observed. Good. Fear makes people careless. The authorities are building their case against her, Nash reported. Based on Parnell's testimony and the evidence you provided, they'll move soon. Not yet, Trent replied. She doesn't understand the true cost of betrayal. The next phase of his plan involved Amara's family. Her younger sister, Lydia, received an anonymous package containing evidence of Amara's plot against her husband and children. Horrified, Lydia contacted their parents, who had always adored Trent. Within days, Amara found herself cut off from her entire family. Trent knew isolation was a powerful weapon. His years and intelligence had taught him that breaking someone required removing all their support systems one by one. Meanwhile, he made weekly secure calls to his sister Shannon's ranch, where the twins were slowly healing. They asked about their mother less frequently now, focusing instead on their new life. "They're doing better," Shannon reported. "The nightmares are less frequent." "And the memories?" Trent asked. "Fading, like you hoped. Children are resilient, Trent, but they need stability." "Soon," he promised. "I'm nearly finished." 3 months after his death, Trent was ready for the final phase. He arranged for Nash to approach Amara as a journalist investigating Helix dynamics. "I have information that might help your situation," Nash told her at a quiet coffee shop. Desperate for allies, Amara agreed to meet again. Over several meetings, Nash gained her confidence, gradually extracting confessions under the guise of preparing her defense narrative. Every word was recorded, creating a damning body of evidence. Amara, believing she'd found a sympathetic ear, revealed details about accessing classified contracts, her relationship with Parnell, and most incriminating, her knowledge of the planned hit on Trent. "What about the children?" Nash asked carefully during their final meeting. There were reports they might have seen sensitive documents. Amara hesitated. "Collateral damage. They were never supposed to be home that night. I'd arranged for them to stay with a friend, so their deaths would have been acceptable." "Necessary," Amara corrected coldly. "You don't understand what was at stake. Project Architect would have revolutionized intelligence gathering. Trent was short-sighted, refusing to sell to Helix. He left me no choice. And you have no regrets?" Amara's eyes hardened. "My only regret is underestimating those brats. If they hadn't warned Trent." Nash had heard enough. As she left their meeting, she transmitted the recording to Trent and the DOJ. That night, federal agents arrested Amara Westfall for conspiracy, corporate espionage, and solicitation of murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming. As Amara was led away in handcuffs, she locked eyes with a bearded man watching from across the street. For a moment, recognition flickered in her eyes, but the man turned away before she could be certain. "It's done," Nash told Trent as they regrouped. "She'll spend decades in prison." But Trent's expression remained cold. "No, there's one piece left. The twins," Nash realized. "You can't keep them hidden forever." "I'm not going to," Trent replied. "It's time to return from the dead." Chapter 6, Resurrected. Trent Westfall's return from the dead made national headlines. His press conference, held exactly 6 months after his supposed death, was a masterclass in controlled narrative. "I went into hiding to protect my children after discovering a conspiracy involving my wife and executives at Helix Dynamics," he told reporters, his appearance now restored to its former polished state. "Evidence I provided to federal authorities details their attempts to steal classified technology and eliminate witnesses, including my 7-year-old twins." The story captivated the public. The devoted father who'd faked his death to save his children from their murderous mother. The decorated veteran who'd single-handedly exposed a plot threatening national security. Director Harlow of the DOJ stood beside him, confirming that Trent had worked with authorities to bring down Project Architect. His temporary death had been necessary to gather evidence and ensure his children's safety. What the public didn't see was the careful choreography behind Trent's resurrection. His sister Shannon had brought the twins back from Montana, coaching them on a simplified version of events that protected them from the full horror of their mother's betrayal. "Your mom made some bad choices and worked with bad people," Shannon explained gently. "She's going away for a long time. But your dad protected you, and now you can be together again." When Trent reunited with his children under controlled conditions, the cameras captured a touching moment of family resilience. What they didn't capture was Blake's whispered question, "Did you make the bad people go away, Daddy?" "Yes," Trent assured him. They can't hurt us anymore. In the aftermath, Trent rebuilt his life with calculated precision. Westfall Protection Services emerged stronger, absorbing key Helix contracts after the company's collapse. The family home was reconstructed, though Trent and the twins lived primarily in a new location with enhanced security. To the world, it appeared Trent had achieved perfect justice. His reputation restored, his company thriving, his children safe, while those who betrayed him faced punishment. But 3 months after his return, as life settled into a new normal, an unexpected development threatened Trent's carefully constructed peace. Betrayal, now 8, approached him in his home office, clutching a familiar piece of paper. "I found this in Aunt Shannon's things when we were packing." Trent froze as he recognized the document. The original list with his name marked by a red X. The one the twins had discovered in Amara's desk. The paper he thought had been destroyed in the fire. "I remember more than you think, Daddy," Betrayal said quietly. "About Mommy's list. About the other names." Trent carefully took the paper. "What do you remember, Princess? There were 5 names before yours. All crossed out already." Her eyes, so like her mother's, held an unsettling awareness. "They were your friends. The ones who died in accidents." Trent maintained his composure, though internally he was reassessing his daughter's perception. She'd seen more than he'd realized. Remembered more. "Those were bad people who worked with Mommy," he explained carefully. Betrayal studied him. "But they were crossed out before Mommy made her plan. You said Mommy only started being bad last year." The perceptiveness chilled him. The names had indeed been Trent's former colleagues. Men who had betrayed him years earlier during a classified operation. Men who had subsequently died in arranged accidents long before Amara's betrayal. "Sometimes adults tell simplified stories to protect children," Trent said carefully. "Like how you said you were hiding from bad men," Blake added, appearing in the doorway. "But really you were hunting them." Trent realized with growing unease that his children had pieced together more than he'd thought possible. The twins exchanged a look he recognized all too well, the silent communication they'd shared since infancy. "We know you made them pay, Daddy," Betrayal said simply. "Like you always told us. Anyone who betrays family has to pay." In that moment, Trent saw something in his children that both troubled and reassured him, a reflection of himself. The same calculative intelligence, the same unforgiving nature, the same ability to compartmentalize justice and vengeance. "Family protects family," he finally said. "Sometimes it means doing difficult things." "Like with Mommy?" Blake asked. "Yes," Trent acknowledged. "Like with Mommy." The twins seemed satisfied with this answer, but as they left his office, Trent understood that his children weren't simply victims he'd rescued. They were observers who'd learned from his example. The realization carried both pride and concern. That night, he called Cal from a secure line. "We have a complication. The twins remember more than I thought." "How much more?" Cal asked. "Enough to connect dots I didn't want connected. They've inherited my perspective on betrayal. Like father, like children," Cal remarked. "Is that a problem?" Trent considered the question. "No," he finally decided. "It's insurance. They'll never be victims again." But as he hung up, Trent couldn't dismiss a lingering concern. The twins' awareness meant his work wasn't finished. There were still loose ends, people who knew too much about his methods, his past operations, his true nature. People like Siobhan Nash, who had witnessed every step of his retribution against Amara. People who might someday pose a threat to his family. Trent opened his safe and removed a fresh sheet of paper. Methodically, he began writing names, people who knew his secrets, people whose existence complicated his future. At the top of the list, he wrote Siobhan Nash. And beside it, he drew a small red X. Chapter 7, Dangerous Legacy. 1 year after Trent Westfall's resurrection, life had assumed a deceptive normalcy. The twins excelled in their new private school. Westfall Protection Services had expanded internationally, and Trent's reputation had evolved from successful businessman to legendary survivor. Amara's federal trial had concluded with a 40-year sentence. Russell Parnell had turned state's evidence, but still received 20 years for his role in Project Architect. Justice, by all public accounts, had been served. Few knew that Trent maintained a shadow operation dedicated to monitoring potential threats. Chief among his concerns was his children's evolving understanding of events. Despite therapy and careful management of information, the twins exhibited troubling signs of their mother's manipulation and their father's ruthlessness. They're showing sociopathic tendencies, Dr. Lenore Walsh reported during a confidential consultation. Not unusual after trauma, but concerning nonetheless. Betrayal in particular displays calculated behavior toward peers who cross her. Define calculated, Trent asked. She doesn't lash out immediately. She waits, observes weaknesses, then exploits them. Last month, a classmate excluded her from a birthday party. 3 weeks later, that girl's most treasured possession was destroyed in what appeared to be an accident. Trent recognized the pattern, his pattern. The patient, methodical approach to retribution he'd employed throughout his career. And Blake? He's more direct, but equally concerning. He's formed a protective circle around his sister. Anyone who threatens that bond faces immediate consequences. Trent nodded, unsurprised. Recommendations? Continued therapy? Consistent boundaries? And most importantly, they need positive models for conflict resolution. They've learned that betrayal warrants destruction, Mr. Westfall. I wonder where they learned that lesson. The implied accusation hung between them. Later that week, Trent received an encrypted message from Cal. Phoenix Rising. Meeting required. The code indicated that someone from their past had resurfaced, someone dangerous. Hours later, they met at a secure location. Nash is gathering information on the twins, Cal reported without preamble. Trent's expression hardened. Explain. She's been making inquiries. School records. Medical files. She accessed Dr. Walsh's notes on them. Why? Cal hesitated. Insurance, most likely. You know how she operates. Everyone needs leverage. Trent had anticipated this possibility. Nash had been essential to dismantling Amara's operation, but she knew too much about Trent's methods, including several that exceeded legal boundaries. Her mistake was letting us detect her, Trent noted. She's getting sloppy. Or sending a message, Cal suggested. Maybe she wants you to know she's watching. Arrange a meeting. 2 days later, Trent met Siobhan Nash at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. Her copper hair was shorter than when they'd last met. Her green eyes just as calculating. The twins are thriving, she said after they ordered, though their psychological evaluations suggest some troubling patterns. Trent didn't react to the provocation. You've been busy. Insurance, she confirmed. Your method of dealing with loose ends is well documented, Trent. I'm simply being prudent. By threatening my children? Nash laughed softly. Not threatening. Protecting. They're extraordinary, you know. Particularly Betrayal. That level of cognitive processing at 8 years old is remarkable. She connects patterns most adults would miss. Stay away from my family, Trent warned quietly. Family is precisely why I'm here, Nash replied, sliding a file across the table. Your operation against Amara was clean. Your previous eliminations, less so. There are people connecting those dots, just like your daughter did. Trent examined the file, which detailed an ongoing DOJ investigation into the deaths of his former colleagues, the names that had been crossed out on Amara's list before his own. Director Harlow? He asked. Nash nodded. She protected you during the architect operation because you were useful. Now, she's wondering if you've been eliminating threats long before Amara betrayed you. What's your stake in this? Self-preservation, Nash admitted. If they come for you, they come for me next. I help you destroy your wife's life. That makes me complicit. Trent considered his options. Nash represented a liability, but also an asset with unique skills. Eliminating her would only validate the DOJ's suspicions. What do you propose? He finally asked. A mutual defense pact, she replied. I help you manage this investigation. You ensure my name stays clear of any fallout. And we both protect those remarkable children from becoming collateral damage. Trent didn't trust Nash, but he recognized the pragmatic value of her offer. Acceptable. On one condition, you never approach my children directly. Agreed, Nash said, raising her wine glass. To complicated partnerships. That night, as Trent tucked the twins into bed. Brielle fixed him with an unnervingly perceptive stare. "Was that lady today a friend or an enemy?" she asked. Trent froze. He hadn't told the twins about his meeting with Nash. "What lady?" "The red-haired woman watching us at school pickup. You met her later." "I saw her car." Blake nodded. "She had a gun under her jacket. I could see the shape." Trent maintained his composure despite his shock. The twins had spotted Nash conducting surveillance, something trained professionals often missed. "Sometimes people are both friend and enemy," he explained carefully. "She's someone who helped us when Mommy made bad choices." "But you don't trust her," Brielle stated with certainty. "No, I don't." "Is she on your new list?" Blake asked innocently. "The one in your safe?" Trent went cold. His children had apparently found his contingency list, the one with Nash's name marked for potential elimination. "You shouldn't be looking in my safe," he said, deflecting the question. "We weren't," Brielle clarified. "We saw the reflection in your glasses when you were working late. It looked like Mommy's list." The twins were not just observant, but strategically adept, using indirect methods to gather intelligence. They'd inherited the worst traits of both parents: Amara's manipulation and Trent's calculated ruthlessness. "Some secrets are meant to protect us all," Trent said finally, "even from each other." The twins exchanged their characteristic look, a silent communication he couldn't decipher. "We understand, Daddy," Brielle said, her voice chillingly adult. "Everyone has secrets." After they fell asleep, Trent called Dr. Walsh. "We need to accelerate their treatment," he said without preamble. "Did something happen?" she asked. "They're becoming too much like me," he admitted, perhaps the first honest self-assessment he'd ever shared. "And that can't happen." Chapter 8, Betrayal Inherited. 3 months after his arrangement with Nash, Trent faced a new crisis. Director Harlow had been replaced at the DOJ by Thomas Reeves, a prosecutor with a reputation for targeting white-collar criminals with military backgrounds. Within weeks, the dormant investigation into the deaths of Trent's former colleagues had been reactivated. "They've subpoenaed your military records," Nash reported during a secure call, "including the classified operations in Lahore." Lahore, where 5 members of Trent's unit had betrayed him during a high-risk extraction, leaving him for dead after stealing intelligence to sell on the black market. The same 5 men who later died in accidents before Amara's betrayal. "Can they access those files?" Trent asked. "Not officially, but Reeves has unofficial channels through his brother at the Pentagon." "Recommendations?" "We need leverage on Reeves," Nash suggested. "Everyone has secrets." But before they could implement this strategy, Trent discovered a more immediate problem at home. The twins had been suspended from school after an incident involving the son of a prominent judge. The boy had allegedly bullied Blake, pulling down his pants in the locker room. 2 days later, the boy suffered a severe allergic reaction during lunch. Campus security footage showed Brielle near the boy's food, but nothing conclusive. When confronted by school administrators, the twins had maintained perfect solidarity, neither confirming nor denying involvement. "This isn't just childhood retaliation," Dr. Walsh warned after the incident. "This was calculated risk assessment, execution, and contingency planning. They determined the exact amount of allergen needed to cause distress without risking death." "How could they know that?" Trent asked, disturbed. "Brielle has been spending considerable time in the school library's medical section, and they both closely observed your methodical dismantling of their mother's life. They're applying your lessons, Mr. Westfall." That evening, Trent confronted the twins directly. "Did you put something in Connor Reeves' food?" he asked calmly. The twins' expressions remained neutral. "Why will we do that?" Brielle asked. "Because he humiliated Blake. Because you believe betrayal requires punishment. Isn't that what you taught us?" Blake countered. The directness of the question caught Trent off guard. "I taught you to protect yourselves. You taught us that people who hurt us have to pay," Brielle corrected. "Like Mommy." "That was different," Trent insisted. "Your mother tried to kill us," Brielle finished. "We know. We remember more than you think, Daddy." Blake nodded. "We remember the men who came that night. We remember the basement door. And we know about the other people on your lists," Brielle added. "The ones before Mommy betrayed you. The ones you made pay." Trent realized with growing horror that his children had been conducting their own investigation, piecing together his past operations through careful observation and access to his secure files. "How did you get into my encrypted records?" he asked quietly. "Your password pattern," Blake said matter-of-factly. "You always use variants of military operation names and dates. We figured it out months ago. We know about Uncle Cal helping you," Brielle continued. "And about the red-haired lady. She's on your contingency list, too. And now you're in trouble because of the new man at Mommy's trial," Blake added. "Director Reeves." Trent froze. "How do you know that name?" The twins exchanged their cryptic look again. "Connor is his nephew," Brielle revealed. "We heard him bragging about his uncle investigating you. That's why we chose him." The calculated nature of their action struck Trent like a physical blow. They hadn't simply retaliated against a bully. They'd strategically targeted someone connected to the DOJ investigation. "What exactly did you do?" Trent asked carefully. "We sent a message," Blake said simply. "Like you taught us." Later that night, Trent received an urgent call from Nash. "Reeves has withdrawn from the investigation, citing personal reasons." "Explain," Trent demanded. "His nephew had a medical incident that the family believes wasn't accidental. They've received warnings to back off your case." "I didn't send any warnings," Trent said, a chill running through him. "Well, someone did," Nash replied. "Someone who knew exactly how to leverage Reeves' greatest vulnerability, his family." After hanging up, Trent checked on the twins, finding them sleeping peacefully. On Brielle's desk lay her science homework, a detailed report on anaphylactic shock and allergic reactions. Beside it was a sealed envelope addressed to Director Reeves, Department of Justice. He carefully opened it, finding a single sheet of paper inside. At the top was a crudely drawn red X, and below it, written in a child's handwriting, "Leave our daddy alone, or next time will be worse." Trent sat heavily on his daughter's desk chair, confronting a terrible truth. In his quest for vengeance, he had created something far more dangerous than his enemies. He had molded his children in his image, teaching them that betrayal warranted destruction at any cost. And now they were applying those lessons independently, without his moral constraints or adult judgment to temper their actions. The twins weren't just victims he'd protected or innocents he'd sheltered from their mother's treachery. They were his true legacy, calculating, ruthless, and absolutely loyal to their conception of family justice. Trent realized he faced an impossible choice: continue enabling their development into weapons like himself, or dismantle the very thought patterns he'd instilled in them through his example. Either way, the damage was already done. The cycle of betrayal and retribution had claimed new participants, his own children. Chapter 9. Red Inheritance. 2 years after the fall of Amara Westfall, her former husband sat across from Dr. Lenore Walsh for their quarterly assessment of the twins' progress. "They're adapting well," she reported cautiously. "Their academic performance is exceptional. No further disciplinary incidents at school." "But," Trent prompted, recognizing her hesitation, "but their emotional development concerns me. They've constructed an elaborate framework of loyalty and betrayal. Anyone within their circle receives absolute devotion. Anyone outside, it is viewed as a potential threat." "That sounds like basic threat assessment," Trent noted. "In adults with military backgrounds, perhaps," Dr. Walsh countered. "In 10-year-old children, it's abnormal. They continue to divide the world into allies and enemies, with no middle ground." Trent couldn't argue. Since the Connor Reeves incident, he'd worked tirelessly to redirect the twins' development, emphasizing empathy and proportional responses to conflict. But their fundamental worldview remained unchanged. Betrayal was unforgivable, family loyalty absolute. After their revelation about accessing his files and targeting Reeves' nephew, Trent had implemented new security protocols. Cal had been reassigned to distant operations. Nash had been kept at arm's length. The contingency list had been destroyed. Yet he sensed the twins were simply becoming more sophisticated in concealing their activities. They presented a perfect facade of normal childhood while maintaining their private bond and shared perspective. "What's your recommendation?" Trent asked. Dr. Walsh hesitated. Complete separation. Different schools, different therapeutic approaches. Their symbiotic relationship reinforces these patterns. That would destroy them, Trent objected. It might save them, she countered. Together, they're becoming something concerning. That evening, as Trent considered this drastic option, he received an unexpected visitor. Siobhan Nash arrived unannounced, bypassing his security systems with ease. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "The twins have been in contact with Amara." Trent felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath him. "That's impossible. She's in federal custody. All communications are monitored. They used an intermediary, an art therapist at the prison who also volunteers at their school. They've been exchanging coded messages for months." "How do you know this?" "Because Amara reached out to me," Nash admitted. "She wants to make a deal." Trent's mind raced through the implications. "What kind of deal?" "Information in exchange for a reduced sentence. She claims to have evidence of your involvement in the deaths of your former unit members. Evidence the twins helped her compile. The betrayal cut deeper than Trent could have imagined. His own children, secretly communicating with the woman who had tried to kill them, gathering evidence against him. "Why would they do this?" he asked, more to himself than Nash. "Because she's their mother," Nash replied simply. "And because she's convinced them you've lied about everything. That the night of the break-in was staged. That you manipulated them to turn against her. That's absurd. She planned to kill them. Children want to believe in their parents, Trent. And Amara was always the more persuasive one." Trent accessed his security system, reviewing footage of the twins' activities over recent months. There was subtle patterns he'd missed. Library visits coinciding with the art therapist's schedule. Drawings sent to community service projects that were actually prison outreach programs. "What's Amara's endgame?" he asked. "Revenge," Nash said. "She loses either way. Either she destroys you with her evidence, or she turns your children against you. Either outcome satisfies her." "We need to move quickly," Trent decided. "The art therapist." "Already handled," Nash assured him. "The communication channel is closed." That night, Trent confronted the twins directly. They sat across from him in his office, their expressions carefully neutral. "I know about your communication with your mother," he said without preamble. Neither child reacted visibly. "Why?" he asked. "After what she planned to do to you?" "We wanted to hear her side," Brielle explained calmly. "You taught us to gather all available intelligence before making assessments." "She tried to kill you," Trent reminded them. "That's what you told us," Blake countered. "But we only have your word." The doubt in his son's voice cut Trent deeply. "You were there. You saw the list. You heard the men break in." "We saw a list," Brielle corrected. "We heard men. But everything after that came from you." "You think I fabricated everything?" Trent asked incredulously. "The federal investigation? Her confession? Parnell's testimony? We think you're capable of elaborate operations," Brielle said carefully. "We've seen your work firsthand." Trent realized he'd created the perfect conditions for this doubt. By demonstrating his abilities to manipulate evidence and construct narratives, he'd given his children reason to question everything, including his account of their mother's betrayal. "What did she tell you?" he asked. "That you framed her because she discovered your involvement in those earlier deaths," Blake replied. "That you staged a break-in to gain custody of us." "And you believed her?" The twins exchanged their characteristic look. "We believe that everyone has secrets," Brielle said. "Including you, Daddy." In that moment, Trent recognized that his children had become perfect weapons, not loyal to him or to Amara, but to their own conception of truth and justice. They had learned from both parents' examples to trust no one completely, to verify everything independently. "What would convince you?" Trent asked finally. "The truth," Brielle replied simply. "All of it. No more protected files. No more lies." Trent weighed his options. The twins had already demonstrated their ability to access his secured information. They'd shown willingness to act independently based on their own judgment. Continuing to withhold information would only push them further from him, potentially toward Amara. "Very well," he said finally. "The complete truth." Over the next several hours, Trent revealed everything: his military operations, the betrayal by his unit members, their subsequent eliminations. He explained how Amara had discovered his past and used it as leverage to partner with Parnell. He provided unredacted files, surveillance footage, and audio recordings that proved Amara's guilt beyond question. The twins absorbed everything with unsettling calm. "So both our parents are killers," Blake observed when Trent finished. "I've eliminated threats," Trent corrected. "People who betrayed oaths and endangered lives." "Like Mommy," Brielle noted. "She betrayed you, so she had to pay." "Yes, and now we betrayed you by contacting her," Blake added. "So what happens to us?" The question revealed their fundamental misunderstanding and Trent's failure as a parent. They believed his love was conditional, based on loyalty rather than unconditional parental devotion. "Nothing happens to you," Trent said firmly. "You're my children. That doesn't change, ever." "But we broke the rules," Brielle pressed. "We betrayed family." "Family is more complicated than rules," Trent explained. "I've made terrible mistakes, especially in how I've raised you. I wanted to protect you from what happened, but instead, I taught you the wrong lessons." For the first time in years, he saw genuine confusion in his children's expressions. "What do you mean?" Blake asked. "I taught you that betrayal can never be forgiven, that people who hurt us must be destroyed. But that's not how healthy people live," Trent admitted. "That's how broken people survive." "Are we broken?" Brielle asked quietly. "No," Trent assured her. "But I've been trying to mold you into weapons instead of children. That stops today." In the following months, Trent implemented dramatic changes. The twins began attending separate schools, not as punishment, but to develop independent identities. Dr. Walsh's therapy intensified, focusing on emotional development rather than behavioral compliance. Trent himself entered therapy, confronting the damage his military experiences and Amar's betrayal had caused. He reconstructed his relationship with the twins based on transparency and appropriate boundaries. Nash remained a distant ally, monitoring Amar's limited prison communications and ensuring the evidence of Trent's past operations remained secured. A year later, Trent sat with the twins in their garden, discussing their futures with a freedom that would have been impossible before. "I want to be a doctor," Brielle announced. "I'm good at understanding how systems work. And I want to be an engineer," Blake added, "building things instead of breaking them." "Whatever you choose," Trent assured them, "I'll support you completely." As the twins left to prepare for dinner, Trent checked his secure phone, finding a message from Nash, AW Terminal. "Request for final visit approved." Amara was dying. Cancer developed in prison, now in its final stages. Her last request was to see the twins. After careful consideration and consultation with Dr. Walsh, Trent presented the option to his children. "Your mother has asked to see you. The choice is entirely yours." The twins considered this together, their silent communication now less frequent but still present. "Will you come with us?" Brielle asked. "If you want me to," Trent replied. "Then yes," Blake decided. "We'll see her." The prison hospital was sterile and depressing. Amara lay withered in her bed, barely resembling the vibrant, manipulative woman who had nearly destroyed their family. "My beautiful children," she whispered when they entered, her eyes filling with tears at the sight of Trent accompanying them. "And you, we're here because they wanted closure," Trent explained calmly. "Nothing more." The twins approached their mother's bedside with caution. Unlike the coldly calculating children of years past, they now displayed appropriate emotion. Sorrow for what might have been, anger at her betrayal, confusion about their complicated feelings. "I wanted to tell you," Amara said weakly, "that I'm sorry. Not for what I did to your father. He deserved that, but for putting you in danger. That was unforgivable." "Yes, it was," Brielle agreed. "But we came anyway," Blake added. Amara studied them with genuine regret. "You've grown so much. Are you happy?" The twins looked to Trent, then back to their mother. "We're learning how to be," Brielle answered honestly. When they left an hour later, the twins walked ahead while Trent lingered briefly at Amara's bedside. "They're extraordinary," she whispered, "despite everything we did to them." "Not despite," Trent corrected. "They survive because they're stronger than our mistakes." "Did you ever love me?" Amara asked suddenly. before it all went wrong? Trent considered the question carefully. Yes, but I never trusted you. That was the beginning of the end. And you trusted me with one thing, she realized. Our children. My greatest mistake, Trent acknowledged. Amara's eyes filled with tears. For what it's worth, I did love them, even when I was willing to sacrifice them. I know, Trent replied. That's what makes you truly dangerous. 3 days later, Amara Westfall died alone in her prison hospital room. The twins received the news with complex emotions, but no tears. That evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Blake asked the question that had lingered for years. Do we have to forgive her, Dad? Trent considered carefully before answering. Forgiveness isn't an obligation. It's a choice that serves your healing, not hers. You get to decide what relationship you want with her memory. What about you? Brielle asked. Did you forgive her? No, Trent admitted honestly. I understood her. I even respected her intelligence. But some betrayals leave permanent scars. Like your Red X list, Blake noted. Yes, Trent acknowledged. But that doesn't mean you have to carry the same scars. You can choose differently. The twins absorbed this, the first genuinely free choice they'd been offered about their emotional inheritance. I think, Brielle said slowly, I'd rather build something new than keep fighting old battles. Blake nodded in agreement. Me too. As darkness fell, Trent watched his children, still bearing the marks of their troubled past, but increasingly charting their own course. The red X that had once marked him for death had become a legacy he'd inadvertently passed to them. But unlike him, they might choose to break the cycle. They weren't weapons anymore. They were children finding their way back from darkness. A journey Trent himself was still navigating. The red inheritance remained part of their DNA, but no longer defined their future. And for Trent Westfall, who had survived betrayal and enacted ruthless justice, that represented the most meaningful victory of all. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.